Welcome, bienvenidos y bienvenidas to the Marta Empowers podcast, a podcast dedicated to empowering first-generation students and their families with information and inspiration about college access, resources, scholarships, and sharing student stories of courage, resilience, and hope. Today, I'm delighted to welcome one of my former students, Esli Ramos, an inspiring and empowering student voice in addressing disability awareness. She is here to help us better understand how people with disabilities navigate their college experience. I met Esli when I served as the student club advisor for Latino Unidos at Joliet Junior College. Esli strengthened my ability to talk about disability awareness and how to create a more embracing, inclusive, and welcoming space. I remember one day, Esli came to my office, and she very openly shared her story and taught me how to make our student club meetings more accessible. And I learned how she uses assistive technology on her laptop to read the meeting agendas. For those who don't know, assistive technology is used by individuals with disabilities to perform certain functions that otherwise might be challenging. This week, on July 26, we celebrate the 31st anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA. The ADA was a groundbreaking legislation passed to create opportunities for equitable participation for people with disabilities. The impact of ADA in higher education has been a catalyst to enhance the success of students with disabilities by ensuring an accessible environment in which to learn and guaranteeing equal access to the university experience they deserve, especially for students like Esli. Esli is studying early childhood development. She hopes to become a child care teacher. She's been very active in college by serving as a student leader in several student organizations, including being elected president of the Disability Awareness Club. Currently, Esli is working on a project to create videos on disability awareness and blindness. She's also very interested in teaching people how to Braille. As you can tell, Esli is a fearless student leader who dreams about getting people out of their comfort zone, helping them express their individuality as a person with a disability. Esli believes we don't have disabilities, we just have abilities that are different and need to be expressed in unique ways. In her free time, Esli enjoys dancing, crocheting, singing, and writing. It is my pleasure to welcome Esli to the Marta Empowers podcast. Tell me, who is Esli?
Esli is short for a longer name. My longer name is actually Esli Merari. One of my grandma's, my mom's mom, she named me when I was little. She told me she got it from a Spanish biblical name. And from what I looked up, one time I was doing an activity with one of the clubs I'm in where we were looking up our names and the meaning of it. From what I looked up, it's actually like a royalty name, like a prince and princess type of name, like put together. And so, but I've always just asked people to call me Esli only because it's sometimes easier for people to say. And then when people can't say my other name together, I often don't know they're calling me, so I just much rather them say Esli. And then I am Puerto Rican. I'm very hardworking and caring and always there for others. And I enjoy having fun, working hard. But I just happen to have a visual impairment. And my visual impairment is called retinitis pigmentosa, which is a rare eye condition that there are different variations of them, but the type that I have, I can only see on the peripheral on my eyes, so I can only see on the sides, and I cannot see in the center very much at all. I only see like dark gray spots in the center, and even on the sides, I can't see very clear either. Everything's blurry. I can only see in certain spots, and I can only see colors and movements and things. That's how much I can see. And then I would also say that Esli is someone who likes to make a difference and make a change wherever I go. I try to teach about disability awareness and blindness and just make people see in a different way rather than seeing visually.
Thank you, Esli. What challenges have you faced as a college student with a disability?
Some challenges I would say I face in school, in terms of the classroom, this was probably more before college, but I would sometimes struggle with trying to have the accommodations that I needed with the actual teacher that I have. The teacher would oftentimes go to either my disability services, like teacher at the time, or in high school and younger, I had a teacher who was called a vision itinerant, who was the one who taught me Braille actually and assistive technology. And then I had another teacher that was called a mobility teacher, and she taught me how to travel with a white cane. And oftentimes the teacher would talk to them rather than talk to me. And I wouldn't know that they're talking to them because like whenever they saw them, they would just talk to them. So the teachers would oftentimes talk to someone else other than me and trying to get, their goal was to accommodate me, but they never thought of asking me. When I got to college, though, at least at Joliet Junior College, things really got different because in college, you're advocating for yourself. So people are oftentimes more willing to listen to you. In high school and under, you have someone there all the time because I had a student aide or a teacher's aide, which was someone who walked with me from class to class because at the time I was still coping with my vision and how much sight I have. So I needed someone to assist me walk into class and like even to the cafeteria and things like that. So my teacher would talk to someone that I was with instead of talking to me. So that was one of the biggest things I could say I faced in school. And then also, even with the students, I started learning how to use my cane when I was about 8 or 9. So I was fourth grade, I believe, fourth or fifth grade. And I was learning how to use my cane. And at the time, I didn't have to use it all the time because I started losing more of my vision when I was about 7. Or no, 7 was when I got diagnosed, and I started losing my vision more when I was about 14. So that was around the time that I was learning. They were teaching me how to use my cane. And so I I noticed that with students wouldn't talk to me or they wouldn't know how to talk to me. They would talk to me for a little bit and then like just do little things like somewhat ignore me and everything. But I also know that's kids too at times. Sometimes when something's different, they're not really sure how to react to it. So that was a thing too. But the older I got, I noticed students were being a lot more helpful and a lot more understanding. But even to this day, sometimes I still find myself trying to include myself and having to explain myself and educate myself. I mean, educate others about myself to get included. I would say a stressful time that I've had a lot of stressful and challenges that I face. The thing about me though is I kind of go through them almost every day. And so I find a way to get through them, whether it is on my own or with help, assistance from others. But I would say my first stressful time actually in college was when I did have to advocate for my accommodations. I've had college professors not completely understand why I needed my accommodations. So they didn't think I needed them because they would see like I have my computer and I should be able to do everything on the computer. But I needed things like I still preferred tests read to me. I still wanted assistance with PowerPoints being braille for me or even emailed to me. And they would just say things like, well, you could look on the website. Everything's on the website, basically. And that was stressful for me because I had to tell them that it was easier for me to either read it in braille or to have it emailed to me rather than having to look and scroll all through the school website where there's a lot of tabs and things like that. Because the way I use the computer is actually without the mouse. I only use the keys. So I use a lot of the arrows and then the letters and tab and shift. So that's how I use the computer. So it's a lot more stressful to use the computer that way when you have a lot of tabs and buttons that you have to go through. So that was one of the most stressful time at the beginning when I was first starting college was having to explain exactly why I needed my accommodation because people thought just because I have a computer that does talk because it has a software with the screen reader and it's called JAWS. There's actually one called JAWS or NVDA, but I have a screen reader on my computer, so people thought that I would be able to do everything on there, and that was stressful for me because I had to explain that for the first time, something that would be big to my future in my classes.
Do you use any other devices or technology to help you in your daily life?
Yeah, I occasionally use my iPad. I have an iPhone. I have an iPhone SE, and then I use this recording device. It's called a Victor Stream Reader. It's actually what I use to record my lectures and everything for my classes because that's also one of my accommodations. I get to record the lectures so I can always come back to it. I do get a note taker at school, which is a student who volunteers to take notes for me. But I also like to record the lectures as well in case the note taker misses anything. And then I use my white cane, which is a cane that oftentimes people can identify when someone is blind or visually impaired. And then I also use a braille typewriter. Those are the main devices I use.
Can you tell me about a positive experience in college when discussing an accommodation?
I would say a positive experience I've had was my first year as well. Actually, in Latinos Unidos Club, I asked, I believe I asked you, Martha, and a couple of the leaders as well, if I can start getting the agenda in Braille. And once I started doing that, it became more fun for me to attend the club, but also I felt a lot more included because sometimes, at least for me, I think of it this way, like I can advocate for myself, but I can't advocate for myself if I don't know what's there to advocate for. So actually, like it took me, I don't know how long, but it took me a little while. Well, probably I don't know, a couple weeks or so, to realize that there was even an agenda being made because I had enough sight to see that you guys would have the projector down, and I was able to see like there was a light on there, so I just assumed it was a projector, and so I thought you guys just had the agenda up there. And then I realized people were getting papers, and I would get this paper as well. Um, and at the time, it's actually where I met two of my greatest, closest friends, Joanna and then JP. At the time, Joanna or JP would hand me the agenda, and they would read it to me and everything. But at times, sometimes like we all want to like start talking to each other, so I would forget to ask or something like that, or sometimes they didn't mind if I didn't know what was going on. But then I started thinking like maybe they can braille the agenda that way, that I can have more of an idea. Either that or email, and I think you guys started doing both. And once I realized that, like, it made me, I don't know, it just made it more fun, and I felt even more included than I did already once I knew what was going on. So that was one of the positive times.
Wonderful. And I do remember you would come to my office and we had this conversation and we started to email you the agendas. So thank you for letting us know how we can make Latinos Unidos a student organization on campus more inviting, more welcoming, more embracing, more included. So you were a valuable member just like anyone else in our student organization. So thank you for sharing that. And I know it must take a lot to try to self-advocate for yourself. And that's why I want to do this episode so people can have an idea and an awareness of what they can do to make sure that their meetings, their college experience embraces everybody.
Yes, definitely.
People who have never interacted with a person who has a disability may think of the exchange as intimidating or nerve-wracking. They might worry what to talk about or how to avoid staring. These concerns are understandable, but it's important to realize people with disabilities should be treated the same as everyone else. What advice would you give to our audience when interacting with people with disabilities? And what are some disability etiquette do's and don'ts?
That's a very great question. I would start off by saying, like you said, people with disabilities are just like you. We're all people. Like you mentioned before, I always say we're all people. We're just people who happen to have different abilities. And I say it that way because there's all kinds of disabilities. So one person you meet, like for example, me, I'm I'm considered legally blind. So legally blind basically means that I can't see to drive, I can't see to read, print, like normal print, text, or anything like that. And yeah, pretty much that I can't see enough to do things efficiently without any assistive technology or braille or my cane or something like that. So I say that to say that people that you meet, someone else that you meet that might be blind or visually impaired, their eyesight is going to be different from mine. So, for example, I have friends who have even a little more sight than me. And the only reason why I can tell that is because they could read Zoom, like print that is zoomed in or just print that is larger. And they don't use a cane as often. They mainly use the cane for people to identify that they have some form of sight loss. And then I have other friends that are completely blind, so they see nothing at all. And they use a cane probably even more than I do. The minute they walk out of their house, they need to use their cane. And it's different. It's different from everyone. I'm just giving an example. Like blindness is a spectrum, so you can't assume that for every disability is different. So each person with a disability is different. Just because you meet one person who happens to be blind doesn't mean you know the next person that you meet who happens to be blind. You still want to get to know them. Like if you were meeting them for the first time, if you were meeting someone who was blind for the first time all over again, because it's a spectrum for all the disabilities. So that's one of the things I would recommend for people. And then also, oftentimes, like, we don't like to talk about our disability from the start. We want to be known as someone just like you. So, like, I know for me, now that I'm older and my sight has gotten worse, I've noticed that people will talk to me more, like actually talk to me and interested in what I like and what I like to do and things like that, rather than talking about my sight. But that's not always the case. Oftentimes, still, when I meet new people, they like to know how much I can see, if I can see them, if I can see the shirt they're wearing, and things like that. And that can be very discomforting when you're constantly being asked about your disability, because it's not like we asked to be this way, we just happen to be born this way. I'm actually I have a close relationship with God, and I truly believe that He made me this way for a reason, and that's how I should accept it. I like to think of things where I'm getting the opportunity to see things in a new way rather than not being able to see. And oftentimes people will bring that up, like, how much can you see? And it's like I said, it's very discomforting. So for anyone with a disability, they don't want to talk about their disability all the time. Now, after you get to know them and something comes up and then you want to ask them right there and then, like, for me, I can still kind of see pictures if I put them really close to my face. um, I can kind of see enough to, especially if I know the person, I can focus my eyes and kind of tell who it is. And I could tell it's a person. I probably can't tell exactly the colors of clothes they're wearing or their hair or anything like that, but I can somewhat see pictures still. So I've had people ask me, like, why do you bring the picture really close to your face? And they do notice I put it on the peripheral of my eyes. So then they remember, but sometimes I still have to explain, like, I can still see it if I put it up to my eyes. So people will ask questions like that, and that's probably the best time to ask is when they're either doing the task or right after they're doing it, rather than asking just randomly. So actually getting to know them and getting to know them as a person and accepting the person they are rather than always talking about their disability. Because like I said, we didn't ask to be created this way. We just happen to be this way. And then also, a disability doesn't have to be just something that you're born with, or or something that you just grow up and have. It can happen at any time to anyone. Someone can get in a car accident and lose their sight, or someone can trip and fall and break their leg, things like that. So I would try to remember that as well, that you can, like, just because someone has a disability, try to remember, like, they're people, and the disability comes after them being people, because the disability is only a part of them, it's not all of them.
Before we close, I would love to hear one of your poems. So, can you share one of your poems and why you wrote it?
Yeah. So I wrote a poem. It's called You See, I See. I wrote it to give the experience of what I see as someone who happens to be legally blind, and then what other people see. So that's a great example of what I mean with seeing things in a different way. So I wanted to give that message. And actually, I wrote it for, it was a contest for JJC. I can't remember what the theme was, but I decided to write it for that. And I participated in it by writing this poem. But yeah, basically I'm trying to send the message of what I see and then what other people see. And it's seeing things in a different way, but we're all living in the same world. Basically, that's the message. You see the stars twinkling in the sky, the sun, the moon, the clouds drifting by. My point of view requires no eyes. Just use your ears, you'll be surprised. The stars are like diamonds that shimmer and shine on a black satin campus that stretches through time. The day gets a view of a cloudy blue. The sun's gift is life, is so divine. You see mountains, valleys, and rivers, from green to white that make you shiver. With eyes wide open, but seeing not a sliver. If you see what I see, I promise I'll deliver. I see crystal mountain peeps that gives waters to rivers that run so deep. The calm, cool air on my rosy cheeks. A valley full of possibilities. Ever seen a church full of people? With hands lifted towards a steeple? With broken eyes, I'm still your equal. 'Cause imagination is sighted, so here's the sequel. I see people lifted high. In hope of tomorrow, faith is alive. Empty cups that are filled up, not with alcohol, but with God's love. By now, you know, if you read every line, that these are thoughts inside my mind. So, with all that, here's a question of mine. Which one of us is truly blind? That is all of it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Esli, thank you for sharing your inspiring story, for your advocacy, and for being a champion and student voice for disability awareness and inclusion. I'm excited to celebrate this moment for ADA with you, as well as celebrating July as Disability Pride Month and celebrating your birthday next week. So, feliz cumpleaños. Happy early birthday, Esli.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias for truly leading the way toward making higher education and our community a stronger and more inclusive place for all. To our audience, thank you for listening. And I challenge you to think about what will you do to continue this conversation with your family, friends, and community to increase disability awareness and advocacy in your respective areas. As part of my personal mission to make the world around me a more accessible and equitable place, I encourage you to take a personal pledge of inclusion. I pledge to respect and act with kindness and compassion. I pledge to accept, respect, and include people of all abilities because inclusion starts with me. You can create a safe space for disability identity. Creating a world that welcomes everyone means disability inclusion. Don't let fear hold you back. Together, we can celebrate how our differences make us stronger. We can talk about what each one of us contributes and honor each person's uniqueness as a natural and beautiful part of our human family. I hope these conversations and stories with my guests will help you feel empowered, visible, heard, and seen, because these stories represent possibility, and that possibility means hope.
Thank you, Martha, for interviewing me. And to everyone out there, don't be afraid to take that next step. And for those with disabilities, know that you're not alone. Get your story out there and be yourself. Happy Disability Pride Month.
Muchas gracias y siga adelante.
By Helen Keller. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision.
Muchas gracias por escuchar. Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the Marta Empowers podcast team. The theme song, El Barrio, is composed and produced by Edwin Miranda. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share with others so together juntos we can change, transform, and empower our comunidad. Follow us on social media, #MartaEmpowers. If there is a topic or question you'd like for me to discuss on a future episode, please send me a message or tag me on Facebook or Instagram. To contact us, you can send an email to martaempowers@gmail.com. In the meantime, siga adelante y échale muchas ganas. Nos vemos pronto. Adiós. Ciao.